The 1960s, a golden era for the American automotive industry. It was the decade of loud muscle cars, bold tail-fin designs, and groundbreaking new technologies. But alongside all that glory came a series of disasters. We're talking about cars with bizarre styling, disappointing performance, or simply too far removed from what the market wanted. Some came from major players like Ford, Chevy, and Chrysler. Others were born from excessive ambition or forward-thinking ideas released at the wrong time. And ironically, many of these vehicles are now collector's items, remembered not for their greatness, but for how spectacularly they failed. In today's video, we're diving into 12 of the worst cars to hit the roads in the 1960s, machines that left the automotive world scratching its head. Are you ready? 1960 Ford Edsel Ranger. Launched in 1958 with the goal of filling the gap between Ford and Mercury, the Edsel line had one of the most aggressive marketing campaigns in history. Millions spent, a dedicated design team, and a revolutionary PR rollout. But by 1960, it had all collapsed. The Edsel Ranger was the last Edsel ever built, and its quiet farewell spoke volumes. While the 1960 model had toned-down styling, ditching the infamous horse-collar grille of earlier years, it couldn't shake off the brand's bad reputation. Customers had lost faith. Dealers refused to stock them, and Ford shut down the entire Edsel line after just 3 years. The problem wasn't just the design. It was a marketing approach detached from reality, overhyped, underdelivered, and ultimately uninspired. Some models even suffered assembly issues, rushed out of Ford's standard factories. Today, the Ranger is seen as the symbol of a broken dream, a prime example that even the biggest automakers can make monumental mistakes. 1961. Plymouth Fury. The early 1960s were a time when American car makers competed to draw the future with bold lines and wild visions. But with the Plymouth Fury, things went too far. Instead of continuing the clean, forward-look styling of 1957 to 1960, Plymouth adopted a bizarre design language: boomerang-shaped grille, recessed headlamps that looked like they were hiding, and a rear end that appeared to fold in on itself. The result looked more like a primitive spaceship, though not in a good way. What's unfortunate is that beneath the strange exterior, the Fury had real potential. It offered the powerful Commando 361 V8, a smooth torque-flight transmission, and strong acceleration in high-performance trims. But none of that mattered, because customers couldn't get past the looks. Sales plummeted, buyers were confused, and the Fury became one of Chrysler's most mocked post-Exner designs. Even dealers reportedly complained they didn't know who to sell it to. 1962 Dodge Dart. After Chrysler executives received intel that Chevrolet was downsizing its full-size cars, they panicked. Orders were sent to shrink the Dart's platform into something more compact, rushed without market validation. The result? A smaller Dart, while competitors stayed full-sized. Customers familiar with the Dart's roomy and solid presence were now handed a smaller, narrower, and oddly styled car. The body featured sharp creases and exaggerated wheel arches that made the car look awkward and disproportioned. Though it came with dependable V8 options like the 318 and 361, sales took a nosedive. It wasn't clear who the Dart was aimed at. It was too big for a compact, too small for a full size. Even Dodge seemed confused. Once a flagship model, the Dart had become a misfit, neither here nor there. It wouldn't be until later years that Dodge got the Dart's segment placement right again. 1963, Chevrolet Corvair Monza Spider. The Chevrolet Corvair was one of GM's boldest cars ever, and one of the most controversial in American automotive history. And the Monza Spider version took that controversy to another level. Corvair used a rear-mounted engine, like a Porsche, to optimize space and weight distribution. The Monza Spider even came equipped with a turbocharged engine making 150 horsepower, an extremely rare feature in early 1960s American cars. It was among the first US vehicles to use turbocharging. But this innovation came at a price. The swing axle rear suspension was unstable at higher speeds, especially in corners. It was prone to rollovers and loss of control, especially for inexperienced drivers. The danger was so significant that Ralph Nader wrote his landmark book, Unsafe at Any Speed, triggering a nationwide push for automotive safety reform. Although GM later revised the suspension system, Corvair's reputation was damaged beyond repair. The line was discontinued by 1969. 1964, Amphar 770. Built in Germany and imported to the US in the early 1960s, the Amphar was powered by a 1,147 cubic centimeter Triumph four-cylinder engine. It featured a unique drivetrain that allowed switching between wheel drive and twin propellers for water use. On paper, it could do 7 knots in water and 70 miles per hour on land, hence the name 770. In reality, though, it wasn't good at either. On land, it was slow and handled poorly. In water, it leaked, rocked heavily, and was very difficult to steer. Most critically, it lacked proper anti-corrosion protection, causing many to rust out after just a few outings. Steering in water was awkward, since it relied on the front wheels rather than a rudder, making navigation inefficient. Maintaining the vehicle's waterproof integrity was also complex and expensive. Only about 3,800 Amphars were built, but the car lives on as a symbolic failure of over-ambition. It proves that a car-boat hybrid may sound fun, but it's rarely practical. 1965. Chrysler Newport 4-door hardtop. In the mid-1960s, the pillarless hardtop design was all the rage in American car styling. The idea was to eliminate the center B-pillar between doors to create an open, airy feel, like a convertible, but with a fixed roof. And the Chrysler Newport 4-door was a prime example, with serious risks. When all 4 doors were opened, you'd see a massive gap with no structural pillar in the middle. While it looked clean and artistic, from a technical standpoint, it was a nightmare for chassis rigidity and side impact safety. In a T-bone crash, rear passengers were dangerously exposed due to the lack of structural reinforcement. As the cars aged, the doors tended to sag or leak at higher speeds, causing loud wind noise inside. Some owners even admitted they didn't let their kids sit near the rear doors because it felt unsafe to see daylight through the open space. Despite offering strong V8 engine options and plush bench seating up front, the Newport's no B-pillar feature became its downfall. 1966 Peele Trident. Among all the cars on this list, none is smaller, lighter, or stranger than the Peele Trident, a vehicle that truly looks like a life-size toy. Built by Peele Engineering Company on the Isle of Man, the Trident was the sibling of the Peele P50, the smallest production car ever made. The Trident was a luxury step-up, with room for a small passenger or child and a clear bubble top that looked like something out of a sci-fi cartoon. Measuring just 72 inches long, weighing only about 200 pounds, and powered by a 49 cubic centimeter DKW engine, the Trident could reach about 28 miles per hour, assuming the wind wasn't blowing against it. It had no reverse gear, no side doors, and essentially no suspension. Every pothole was a full-body experience. While it was marketed as a hyper-efficient city vehicle, the reality was that the Trident was too weak, too unsafe, and too odd for the average driver. No crumple zones, no seatbelts, and a plastic shell that offered virtually zero protection in a crash. 1967, Cadillac El Dorado. The 1967 Cadillac El Dorado was considered a bold turning point in American luxury cars because it was the first Cadillac with front-wheel drive since the 1920s. With its sharp, futuristic styling, long two-door coupe body, and massive 429 cubic inch V8 engine, the El Dorado stood out. But behind the glamour came a set of engineering headaches that made this car feel overreaching. The transverse-mounted big block V8 paired with FWD was an engineering marvel at the time, but it had its downsides. The front-heavy layout caused severe understeer during sharp turns. The front suspension struggled under weight stress, leading to premature wear, and the original drum brakes weren't powerful enough to stop this 4,500-pound cruiser safely, a major concern for highway drivers. On top of that, the FWD setup and transmission were hard to service, especially in an era when most mechanics weren't trained for it. Maintenance costs rose, and replacement parts were scarce. 1967 AMC Marlin. In an attempt to compete with the Ford Mustang and Dodge Charger, AMC, a small automaker with a tight budget, launched a bold fastback called the AMC Marlin. But by 1967, the Marlin wasn't just falling behind. It had become a symbol of a car that didn't know what it wanted to be. Originally built on the Rambler Classic platform, a mid-size sedan, AMC tried to reshape it into a sporty fastback coupe. The result was a long, awkwardly styled car with a sloping rear that resembled a shark, but lacked proportion. Critics said the Marlin looked like a half-luxury, half-sport vehicle that failed at both. In 1967, AMC tried to update it. A new 343 cubic inch V8 engine, improved interior, and sleeker styling. But it wasn't enough. The Marlin was too big to be a sports car, too conservative to be a muscle car, and too forgettable to gain market share. Worse, AMC had just launched the Javelin, a lighter, sportier, and cheaper model, which instantly made the Marlin obsolete within its own lineup. 1968, Renault 10. The Renault 10, or R10, was a compact sedan that gained popularity in Europe for being affordable and fuel-efficient. But when it entered the US market in the late 1960s, it was quickly seen as out of place in a land dominated by V8 muscle and wide-open highways. Powered by a rear-mounted, water-cooled 1.1-liter engine producing around 48 horsepower, the R10 was fine for city driving. But on American highways, where 60 to 70 miles per hour is standard, it felt slow, noisy, and unstable. Driving in crosswinds was a true challenge. Its soft suspension and clunky gearbox gave it a wobbly feel. The all-drum brake system lacked stopping confidence. Many American drivers described piloting the R10 as sailing a boat on asphalt. Beyond technical issues, cultural mismatch played a big role. Americans weren't ready for a small sedan with a weak engine, no strong AC, and little road presence. The R10 was quickly abandoned by both customers and dealerships. 1969, Chevrolet Kingswood Estate Wagon. By the late 1960s, the station wagon was still a symbol of the modern American family. Spacious, convenient, and enormous. Among them, The 1969 Chevrolet Kingswood estate wagon stood out for its sheer size, upscale styling, and a fuel appetite that could make gas stations cheer. Built on the Impala platform, the Kingswood stretched nearly 18.5 feet long, weighed over 4,800 pounds, and could carry up to 9 passengers thanks to a foldable third row. Under the hood was a 427 cubic inch big block V8, classic American power, but it drank fuel like crazy, averaging just 8 to 10 miles per gallon in real-world driving. The problem? This gas guzzler hit the market right before the 1970s energy crisis. Suddenly, reliance on massive, thirsty engines became a liability. Buyers began shifting to compact, fuel-efficient cars, and the Kingswood was quickly labeled a prehistoric giant. Driving it through cities was no joy either. Hard to maneuver, poor visibility, and early front disc brakes that weren't confidence-inspiring. Today, the Kingswood estate wagon stands as a relic of an era of excess, a reminder that bigger isn't always better. 1969, Subaru 360. Before Subaru gained fame for its dependable, all-wheel drive wagons, the Japanese automaker had a rough start in the US with the Subaru 360, and 1969 marked the peak of that misadventure. The Subaru 360 was a key car in Japan, measuring just 117 inches, 2.99 meters long, weighing under 1,000 pounds, and powered by a 356 cubic centimeter two-stroke engine producing just 25 horsepower. In Japan, it was beloved for being cheap, easy to drive, and simple to maintain. But in America, a land of big highways, big engines, and big safety expectations, it became a punchline on wheels. In 1969, Consumer Reports infamously labeled the 360 as unacceptably hazardous, citing its flimsy construction, poor crash resistance, and sluggish acceleration, taking over 30 seconds to reach just 30 miles per hour. It was deemed unsafe and practically unusable on American highways. Only about 10,000 units were sold before Subaru pulled the plug on US sales. Temporarily, they later returned with a new strategy, a massive success. Though once labeled as engineering disasters, design flops, or marketing misfires, the 12 cars on today's list have undeniably carved their place in automotive history. Some were too ambitious, others ahead of their time, and a few were just not fit for America. But all of them taught the industry a valuable lesson. Innovation doesn't always mean success, and failure doesn't always mean being forgotten. Have you ever seen or driven any of these cars? Or do you think there's a vehicle we missed? Let us know in the comments. And if you enjoy stories like these, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell so you won't miss our next automotive adventure.